The message arrived at dawn. Nari sat in her quarters aboard the human embassy station, drinking her morning tea when the screen on her wall flickered to life. The symbol that appeared made her set down her cup carefully. The Galactic Council wanted to see her. Now, she had been Earth's ambassador to the Council for 5 years. In that time, she had attended hundreds of meetings, trade discussions, cultural exchanges, border disputes that were always solved by everyone agreeing to back away. The elder races of the galaxy had perfected the art of avoiding trouble. They talked, they negotiated, they retreated when necessary. They had survived for 40,000 years this way, but this summons felt different. The message carried an emergency code she had never seen used before. Nari dressed quickly in her formal ambassador uniform and took a shuttle to the council chambers. The building was ancient, built by a race that had disappeared long before humans learned to make fire. Its walls were made of some crystal material that seemed to glow with its own light. Inside, the massive circular chamber could hold representatives from 1,000 different worlds. Today, only the 3 eldest races had gathered: the Velthara, beings made of living crystal that sang when they spoke; the Omnath, creatures of gas and energy that existed in special containment fields; and the Prethik, ancient reptilian beings whose empire was old when Earth's dinosaurs still walked. They did not look pleased to see her. Ambassador Nari, the Velthara elder, spoke, its voice like wind chimes. "We must discuss your species." Nari took her seat. "I'm listening." The center of the chamber lit up with a holographic display. It showed a planet, green and blue, with 2 small moons. Nari recognized it immediately. New Jeju, one of humanity's colony worlds on the outer rim. Home to 3 million humans who had built farms and cities under those alien skies. This world was attacked 6 days ago, the Omnath representative said. Its voice came from a speaker, translated from whatever language clouds of sentient gas used. "The Krell swarm has claimed it." Nari felt her stomach tighten. The Krell. Every species in the galaxy feared them. They were a hive mind. Billions of insect-like creatures controlled by a single consciousness. They had been spreading across the outer rim for thousands of years, consuming everything in their path. Whole civilizations had been devoured by them. "Our people," Nari said quietly. "What happened to the colonists?" The Prethik elder, whose name was too complex for human tongues, leaned forward on its coiled tail. "The Krell have taken approximately 2.1 million of your people. The standard protocol is clear. The world is lost. The survivors must be mourned. The territory must be ceded." "Ceded?" Nari stood up. "You mean abandoned?" "It is how we have survived," the Velthara sang. "The Krell cannot be defeated. Every species that has tried has been consumed. We retreat, we adapt, we endure." The hologram changed. Now it showed something that made all 3 elder races shift uncomfortably in their spaces. It was a fleet. Hundreds of human warships, gathered from a dozen different systems. At the center was a massive carrier, its hull painted with Earth's blue and green colors. "Your military has mobilized," the Omnath said. "They are not evacuating the remaining colonists. They are not negotiating. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo has declared something you call war against the Krell swarm." Nari looked at the fleet. She could see the names painted on the hulls. Indomitable, defiant, unbreakable. Names that meant something to humans. Names that promised not retreat, but resistance. "This is why we have summoned you," the Prethik said. "You must stop this. The Krell have consumed 400 civilizations in the past 10,000 years. Species with weapons far beyond yours. Species with billions more soldiers. All of them failed. Your fleet is sailing toward extinction." "They took our people," Nari said. Her voice was calm, but there was iron in it. "The Krell have taken billions over the millennia," the Velthara sang sadly. "It is a tragedy. But throwing more lives away will not bring them back." Nari walked closer to the hologram. She studied the fleet, thinking about the men and women aboard those ships. They knew what they were flying toward. They had seen the same reports the Council had. They knew about the 400 dead civilizations. They knew the odds, and they were going anyway. Ambassador, the Omnath pressed. Your species has been part of the galactic community for only 300 years. You are still young. Still learning. We understand that your emotions make you act impulsively. But this is suicide. How many people have the Krell taken from your worlds? Nari asked suddenly. The question seemed to surprise them. The three elders exchanged looks, or whatever passed for looks among beings of crystal, gas, and ancient scales. We do not engage the Krell, the Prefect finally answered. When they come, we leave. We have lost worlds, yes, but we have not lost our people. We evacuate in time. You run, Nari said. There was no judgment in her voice. Just fact. We survive. The Velthara corrected. For 40,000 years, we have survived. Can you say your strategy will let you do the same? Nari turned away from the hologram to face them directly. The Council has been very kind to humanity. You welcomed us. You shared your technology. You taught us how the galaxy works. We are grateful for all of this. Then listen to our wisdom now, the Omnath said. Call back your fleet. Mourn your dead. Live to continue as a species. I can't do that. Cannot, or will not. Both. Nari looked each of them in the eye. Or, whatever they had, instead of eyes. You've survived 40,000 years by running. By calculating acceptable losses. By deciding that some people, some worlds, can be sacrificed for the greater good. That's your wisdom. She paused, then continued. But we're human. And humans don't leave their people behind. Not when there's still a chance. Not when we can still fight. You see our fleet sailing toward the Krell and you see suicide. We see a rescue mission. With weapons, the Prefect pointed out. Yes, Nari agreed. With weapons. Because the Krell won't give our people back if we ask nicely. They won't negotiate. They won't be reasoned with, so we're going to take our people back. And if the Krell try to stop us, we're going to go through them. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, the Velthara spoke, its voice soft and sad like distant bells. Then you doom your species. We have seen this before. Young races, full of passion and courage, throwing themselves against the uncaring universe. They all fall eventually. Nari walked toward the exit. At the doorway, she turned back. Maybe we will fall. Maybe the Council is right, and this is madness. But the thing about humans is this. We would rather die trying than live with the guilt of not trying at all. She left the chamber. Behind her, the three eldest races in the galaxy sat in silence, watching the hologram of the human fleet as it prepared to jump into Krell space. They had no idea that this decision, this human choice to rush into war, was about to change everything. The cosmos itself was about to remember something it had forgotten for 40,000 years. And when it remembered, it would shake. The jump point shimmered like water in sunlight. One by one, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Krell territory. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the carrier Indomitable, and watched as his ships took formation. 347 vessels. Every warship humanity could spare from a dozen systems. Carriers and battleships, cruisers and destroyers, and dozens of smaller craft. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. It would have to be enough. Sir. All ships reporting ready, said Commander Woojin, the flag captain. Krell defense stations have detected us. They're scrambling their swarms. Hyunwoo nodded. He was an old man, nearly 70, with gray hair and a face marked by decades of military service. He had fought in the border wars against pirates. He had negotiated peace with the Talvex Empire. He had spent his entire adult life learning the art of war, but he had never fought anything like the Krell. Contact Captain Ji-hoon, Hyunwoo ordered. Tell him to begin the first strike. On the far edge of the fleet, aboard the carrier Defiant, Captain Ji-hoon received his orders. He was younger than the admiral. Barely 40. But he had earned his reputation in 100 small battles. His crew trusted him completely. "You heard the man," Ji-hun said to his bridge crew. "Launch all fighters. Commander Soman, your Marines are up." In the launch bay, Commander Soman checked her armor one last time. She was a compact woman, muscular and scarred, with short hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. Behind her, 200 Marines in powered armor were doing the same checks. Weapons, seals, oxygen, ammunition. "Listen up," Soman shouted to her troops. "The Krell don't take prisoners to be nice. They take them to eat them. To absorb their knowledge. Our people are still alive in those hive ships, and we're going to get them out. Are you ready?" 200 voices shouted as one. "Yes, ma'am." "Then let's go to work." The fighters launched first. Small, fast ships that darted out into space like angry hornets. Lieutenant Taiyang was among them, flying a heavy interceptor loaded with missiles. He had volunteered for this mission the moment he heard about the attack on New Jeju. His sister lived there. His sister, her husband, and their 2 children. "All wings, form up on me," Taeyang said over the radio. "Remember, we're not here to dogfight. We're here to punch a hole for the Marines. Hit the command ships and get out." The Krell response was immediate. From the massive orbital stations, thousands of enemy fighters poured out. They looked like metal insects, all sharp edges and chitinous armor. They moved in perfect coordination, guided by the hive mind that controlled them all. The Galactic Council observers, watching from their distant monitoring posts, prepared to document another species extinction. They had seen this pattern before. Young race encounters the Krell, young race fights bravely, young race dies. But something was different this time. The human fighters didn't try to match the Krell's numbers. Instead, they used tactics the observers had never seen in modern warfare. They worked in pairs and trios, covering each other. When one ship was pursued, another would sweep in from an angle, guns blazing. When a ship was damaged, others would surround it, protecting it while it retreated. The Krell had numbers. The humans had teamwork. Taeyang dove through a cloud of enemy fighters, his missiles tracking and destroying 3 ships in as many seconds. A Krell fighter latched onto his tail, but his wingman, a young pilot named Bora, took it out with a precise burst of cannon fire. "Thanks, Bora," Taeyang said. "Buy me a drink when we're home," she replied. The fighter battle raged while the larger ships moved forward. The Krell had expected the humans to stay at range, to fight with missiles and energy weapons from a safe distance. That's what civilized species did. That's what survivors did. Humans did something else. "All ships, close to boarding range," Ji-hun ordered. The Galactic Council observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. The human ships were accelerating toward the Krell hive ships. Not to ram them, but to get close. Dangerously close. "They're insane," the Prethik observer whispered. Captain Ji-hun's carrier slid alongside a massive Krell hive ship, matching its course and speed. Magnetic clamps locked the 2 vessels together. Breaching pods fired from the human ship, drilling through the enemy's armor. Commander Soman was in the first pod. The moment it broke through, she and her Marines poured into the Krell ship. The corridor beyond was a nightmare. Dark, wet, organic. The walls seemed to breathe. The air was thick with chemicals that made the humans' helmet displays flash warnings. And then the Krell came. They were hideous. Each one was the size of a man but built like an insect. 6 limbs, 4 for walking, and 2 equipped with natural weapons. Mandibles that could cut through steel. Eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Soman didn't hesitate. Her plasma rifle burned through 3 Krell before they could close the distance. Behind her, her Marines formed a firing line, weapons creating a wall of destruction that the Krell threw themselves against. "Spread out," Soman ordered. "Teams of 5. Find the holding cells. We're here for our people, not for glory." The Marines split up, each team moving deeper into the hive ship. The Krell kept coming, wave after wave, but the humans had brought weapons specifically designed for this kind of fighting. Shotguns that could shred chitin armor. Flamethrowers that turned the organic corridors into infernos. breaching charges that could seal or open passages as needed. The Galactic Council observers watched in growing horror as teams of humans fought through the hive ship. This wasn't warfare as they understood it. This was something primal, something violent, something effective. On the bridge of Indomitable, Admiral Hyunwoo watched the tactical display. His ships were taking damage, but they were also dealing it out. Krell ships were burning. Krell stations were going offline. "Sir, Lieutenant Taeyang is requesting permission for a suicide run," Commander Woojin reported. "There's a command ship coordinating the defense. He thinks he can take it out." Hyunwoo felt a chill. "Negative. Tell him to pull back." "Sir, he says he's already committed. His fighter is damaged. He can't make it back to the carrier anyway." The Admiral watched on his screen as Taeyang's fighter, streaming fire and trailing debris, accelerated toward the massive Krell command ship. At the last moment, Hyunwoo saw the escape pod eject. Taeyang's fighter slammed into the command ship's bridge and exploded. The command ship went silent. Thousands of Krell fighters suddenly lost coordination, flying in confused patterns. "Rescue team, go get that pilot," Hyunwoo ordered. "Commander Woojin, push all ships forward while they're confused." Deep inside the Krell hive ship, Commander Salmon's team found what they were looking for: a massive chamber filled with cells. Inside the cells were humans. Thousands of them, alive. "Blow the locks," Salmon ordered. The cells opened. The freed colonists stared at the armored Marines with tears in their eyes. An old man grabbed Salmon's arm. "You came for us," he said, his voice breaking. Salmon's voice was hard, but her eyes were soft behind her helmet visor. "Humans don't abandon humans. Now, let's get you home." The extraction took hours. The fighting was brutal. The Krell didn't understand retreat, and the humans wouldn't accept failure. By the time Salmon's teams made it back to the breach pods with the rescued colonists, half the Marines were wounded, and 24 would never go home. But they had saved 3,000 people. Captain Ji-hoon watched as the last rescue pod docked with his carrier. His ship was scarred, burning in a dozen places, with half its weapons offline. Around him, the rest of the fleet was in similar condition, but the Krell had suffered worse. 5 hive ships destroyed, 3 orbital stations reduced to debris, thousands of fighters eliminated. "All ships, prepare to jump out," Admiral Hyunwoo ordered. "We're going home." As the human fleet began to disengage, the Galactic Council observers sat in stunned silence. The Prethik observer finally spoke. "They survived. They did more than survive," the Velthara observer sang. "They won." "Impossible," the Omnith observer said. "No one wins against the Krell." But the recordings didn't lie. Humanity had struck the Krell swarm, rescued their people, and escaped. It was something no species had done in 10,000 years. And this was only the beginning. Admiral Hyunwoo had not slept in 3 days. His fleet had pushed deep into Krell space, breaking through defensive line after defensive line. Each battle was brutal. Each victory came at a price. But they kept moving forward. The rescued colonists from the first battle had been sent back to human space on hospital ships. Their stories had spread across Earth's colonies like wildfire. The Krell hadn't just captured them, they had been preparing to process them, to consume them, to add human memories and knowledge to the hive mind. It made humanity angry, very angry. "Sir, we're approaching the 3rd defensive sphere," Commander Woojin reported. "The Krell are massing everything they have. Our scouts count over 2,000 ships." Hyunwoo studied the tactical map. 2,000 ships against his remaining 290 vessels. The numbers were bad. But numbers weren't everything. "Do we have Dr. Murray's analysis yet?" he asked. A woman's voice came over the communication system. "I'm here, Admiral. And you need to see what I found." Dr. Murray was a xenobiologist, one of humanity's leading experts on alien life. She had been aboard the fleet since the beginning, studying Krell specimens and intercepted communications. What she had discovered would change everything. On the flagship's main screen, Murray's face appeared. She looked exhausted but excited. I've been analyzing the Krell biocommunications we captured. The hive mind uses chemical and quantum signals to coordinate, but there's also a neural component. When they consume a species, they absorb memories. We know this, Hyunwoo said. Yes, but here's what we didn't know. They absorbed human memories from the colonists they captured. And those memories are causing problems for the hive mind. Hyunwoo leaned forward. What kind of problems? Mireille pulled up data on her screen. The Krell have been the dominant predator in this region for 10,000 years. They've consumed hundreds of civilizations. But none of those civilizations had our cultural history. Our stories. Our stories. She showed images of human art. Paintings of ancient battles. Statues of warriors. Books filled with tales of heroism and resistance. Every species has stories, but humans are obsessed with stories about fighting against impossible odds. David and Goliath, the 300 Spartans, the Alamo, Thermopylae, Marathon. We have 10,000 years of recorded history, and half of it is about people who refuse to quit. So? Woojin asked. So the Krell overmind has never experienced this before. It consumed memories of human colonists. And in those memories are grandparents telling stories to children. Teachers, explaining history, movies and games and books all about never surrendering. The hive mind doesn't understand it. More than that, it's starting to feel something it's never felt before. What's that? Hyunwoo asked. Fear, Mireille said quietly. The Krell overmind is afraid of us. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then one of the younger officers laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. Soon others joined in. Not mocking laughter, but the kind that comes from releasing tension. They should be afraid, Hyunwoo said. All ships, prepare for the third battle. And someone get this information to every captain in the fleet. I want them to know that we're already in the enemy's head. While the fleet prepared for the next engagement, Sergeant Do-hyun was dealing with a different kind of mission. His squad had been detached to search for more survivors on New Jeju itself. The Krell had not completely evacuated the planet. Some colonists had escaped the initial attack and were hiding in the wilderness. Do-hyun's team moved through what had been a small farming town. The buildings were damaged but still standing. The fields were trampled. But there were signs of recent human activity. Spread out, Do-hyun ordered. Look for survivors. Be careful. Krell scouts might still be in the area. Private Hana found the first clue. Footprints in the mud, leading to a barn. Inside, they found a group of 20 colonists. Men, women, and children, all hiding in the hayloft. We're from the Terran military, Do-hyun announced. You're safe now. An older man climbed down from the loft. He was in his 60s, with a weathered face and hard hands. A farmer. Safe, he said. We've been fighting those bugs for 6 days. Lost good people doing it. Do-hyun was surprised. You fought them? Civilians? What else were we supposed to do? The farmer said. They came to take us. We weren't going to make it easy. The sergeant looked around the barn. He saw improvised weapons, farm tools that had been sharpened into spears, bottles filled with chemicals that could burn, traps made from rope and farming equipment. How many Krell did you take down? Do-hyun asked. The farmer shrugged. Maybe 20. Maybe more. Hard to count when you're running for your life. But we got some of them. That's what matters. Throughout the day, Do-hyun's team found more survivors. Each group had a similar story. The Krell had come expecting easy prey. They had found humans who refused to be prey. A teacher had protected her students with nothing but a steel pipe. A group of teenagers had used their knowledge of the local caves to ambush Krell scouts. An old woman had held off 3 Krell with a kitchen knife long enough for her grandchildren to escape. Do-hyun reported everything to Admiral Hyunwoo. Sir, these weren't soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, and they resisted anyway. With no training, with no weapons. They fought because that's what humans do. Hyunwoo felt a weight settle on his chest. These were the people he was fighting for. Not warriors. Not heroes from stories. Just ordinary people who became extraordinary when they had to. Get them all off that planet, Hyunwoo ordered. Every last one. The third battle began at dawn, at least by the flagship's clock. The Krell came at them with everything. Wave after wave of fighters. Hive ships that dwarfed human vessels. Weapons that could burn through armor in seconds. But Admiral Hyunwoo had learned something about the Krell. They were predictable. The hive mind controlled everything, which meant every Krell ship and every Krell fighter moved with perfect coordination. It was their greatest strength. It was also a weakness. Captain Ji-hoon, Hyunwoo said over the communication channel. Remember the falter pattern? Ji-hoon smiled on his screen. The fake retreat? Sir, that's going to be risky. Everything about this mission is risky. Do it. The human fleet began to pull back. To the Krell, it looked like a retreat, like the humans had finally hit their breaking point. The Krell pressed their advantage, their ships surging forward in a coordinated wave. They were moving exactly where Hyunwoo wanted them. Now, the Admiral said quietly, the human fleet suddenly stopped retreating. Ships that had seemed damaged and desperate suddenly came alive with full power. They had been playing dead, and while the Krell had been focused on the retreat, other human ships had been moving into position on the flanks. The trap closed. The Krell found themselves surrounded, their perfect coordination working against them. Every ship tried to follow the hive mind's orders simultaneously, and in the confined space, they got in each other's way. The human fleet tore them apart. Captain Ji-hoon's carrier punched through the Krell line, its weapons firing constantly. Commander Salmon launched another boarding action. Her Marines hitting a Krell processing ship, where intelligence suggested more colonists were being held. Lieutenant Taeyong, recovered from his last mission with nothing more than bruises, led his fighter wing through the chaos. He had learned that his sister was alive. Rescued in the first battle, it made him fight smarter, not reckless. He had people to get home to. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Krell had lost half their defending force. The human fleet was battered, with 50 ships too damaged to continue fighting, but they had broken through the third defensive line. Sir, Commander Woojin said, we're receiving a signal. It's from New Jeju. Sergeant Do-hyun says they've secured all the survivors they can find, over 9,000 people. Hyunwoo closed his eyes for a moment. 9,000. Plus the 3,000 from the first battle. 12,000 lives saved. Not everyone, not the 2 million who had been lost, but 12,000 families who would go home. Dr. Murray's voice cut into his thoughts. Admiral, you need to see this. The Krell overmind is communicating with its outer territories. I'm detecting massive movement. They're pulling ships back toward their home system. A retreat? Woojin asked, surprised. No, Mireille said. They're massing for a final defense. But here's the strange part. The biocommunications I'm intercepting, they're not standard Krell patterns. There's chaos in them, uncertainty. They're scared, Hyunwoo said. We're making them scared. He looked at the tactical map. At the path to the Krell home system. One more battle. One more push. And this nightmare would be over. All ships, he announced to the fleet. We've come this far together. We've lost friends. We've bled. But we've also saved thousands of our people. Now we finish this. The Krell want to make a final stand? Let's give them one they'll never forget. Across the fleet, battered but unbroken, humanity's warriors prepared for the final battle. They had pushed the Krell to their breaking point. Soon, the Krell would discover what happens when you push humanity to theirs. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from 50 different species filled the space, all of them watching the same holographic display. The human fleet, now reduced to 230 operational ships, was preparing to enter the Krell home system. This is insanity, the Prethik ambassador said. His old scales rattled with agitation. They cannot win. The Krell have defended their home world for 10,000 years. Ambassador Nari stood at the human delegation's position, watching the display calmly. She had received regular updates from Admiral Hyunwoo. She knew the cost. Every battle report came with a casualty list. Every victory was painted in human blood. But they had saved 12,000 people. And they weren't done yet. Perhaps you should have more faith, Nari said quietly. Before the Prefect could respond, something happened that made everyone in the chamber freeze. A sound. Except, it wasn't really a sound. It was more like a feeling, a vibration that came from everywhere and nowhere. The Velthara Elder, made of living crystal, began to glow brightly. Its voice rang out like a bell, high and alarmed. The old systems, they're waking up. Around the council chamber, displays that had been dark for millennia suddenly flickered to life. Ancient monitoring equipment, built into the very walls of this place, began showing data. Quantum disturbances, spatial anomalies, energy readings that made no sense. What's happening? A younger delegate asked. The Velthara Elder sang a note of what might have been fear. I remember this. From the oldest records, from before the long peace. This is the signature of the architect's weapons. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. The architects were legend. A species that had existed 40,000 years ago. Before any of the current civilizations had reached for the stars. They had built weapons beyond understanding, and then vanished, leaving only ruins and mysteries behind. The architects are gone, the Omnath representative said. Dead for 40,000 years. Their weapons are not dead, the Velthara Elder replied. They were left behind. Sleeping. Waiting. Waiting for what? Nari asked, the crystal being turned its faceted head toward her. For a species like the architects themselves. For warriors who fight not for conquest, but for something else. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Deep in space, in a system the human fleet was approaching, ancient machinery stirred. On dead worlds that had known no life for 40,000 years, structures began to power up. They had been waiting. Silent. Their AI cores dormant but aware. Watching the galaxy. Looking for a specific pattern. They had found it. Aboard the Indomitable, Colonel Sungho was having a very strange day. He was the fleet's chief intelligence officer, responsible for analyzing all the data they collected. For the past hour, his instruments had been going crazy. Admiral, Sungho said, bursting onto the bridge. We have a situation. Multiple systems in our path are showing massive energy spikes. Structures on dead planets are powering up. Sir, I think we've triggered something. Hyunwoo looked at the data. Krell weapons? No, sir. These readings don't match anything, Krell. They don't match anything we know at all. These structures are old. Really old. And they're responding to us. Responding how? Before Sungho could answer, the ship's main view screen changed. It showed a planet ahead of them. A dead world, with no atmosphere, and no life. On its surface, a massive structure was rising from the ground. It had been buried for so long that mountains had formed over it. Now, it was breaking through, shedding rock and ice like water. It looked like a fortress. Or maybe a weapon. It was hard to tell. Its design was alien in a way that even the Krell weren't. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at. Surfaces that seemed to shift between solid and energy. What is that? Woojin breathed. Dr. Murray's voice came over the communication system. I've seen those patterns before. In archaeological records. Admiral. That's architect technology. Across the fleet, similar structures were appearing on other dead worlds. Some looked like ships. Some looked like stations. All of them were ancient beyond measure, and powerful enough to make human scanners overload. Are they hostile? Hyunwoo asked. Unknown, sir. They're just sitting there, watching us. Back at the Galactic Council, the monitoring equipment was going wild. The Velthara Elder studied the readings with growing recognition. I understand now, it sang. The architects left their weapons behind as a test, as guardians. They would activate only for a species that fought like the architects themselves. How did the architects fight? Nari asked. with purpose, with precision, with controlled fury. The crystal being's voice was filled with ancient memory. The architects didn't fight for territory or resources, they fought to protect, to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. They fought until the job was done, then they stopped. The galaxy has not seen such warriors in 40,000 years. The Prethic ambassador's eyes widened. You're saying the humans, they're similar to the architects? Not in biology, not in technology, but in spirit? The Velthara made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Yes. And the weapons recognize it. Ambassador Nari felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at the tactical display. At Admiral Hyunwoo's fleet moving toward the Krell homeworld. At the ancient weapons that had awakened around them, the human fleet approached the Krell home system carefully. The ancient structures followed them, maintaining a specific distance. They didn't fire. They didn't communicate. They just watched and waited. It's like they're escorting us, Captain Ji-hoon said from his carrier. Colonel Sung-ho had been working non-stop to understand the ancient technology. What he found made him rush back to the Admiral's bridge. Sir, I've analyzed the power output of just one of those structures. It's producing more energy than our entire fleet combined. If they have weapons proportional to that power, they could sterilize a planet in minutes. Hyunwoo absorbed this information. Can we control them? I don't know. Maybe. The systems are trying to interface with our computers. It's like they're waiting for orders. But sir, there's something else. Sung-ho pulled up a star map. These structures didn't just appear here. They're appearing all along our route. And at the Krell home system, they've been dormant for 40,000 years, and now they're waking up because of us. Because we fight like the architects did, Hyunwoo said, understanding. The final approach to the Krell home system began. The Krell Overmind had massed every remaining ship. Thousands upon thousands of vessels filled space around their home world. It was a defensive wall unlike anything the galaxy had seen in generations. But between that wall and the human fleet, the ancient architect structures took position, silent, waiting. Inside the Krell Overmind, something unprecedented was happening. The hive mind was experiencing conflict. The absorbed human memories had introduced concepts it had never encountered. Stories of hopeless last stands. Tales of victory against impossible odds. Ideas about fighting for others rather than for oneself. The Overmind had consumed 400 civilizations. None of them had affected it like this. The humans had infected it with something worse than any weapon: doubt. And now, ancient weapons from a species that had terrified the Overmind's ancestors were awakening. The Krell Overmind understood the pattern. The humans had triggered something that had been waiting for species like them. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Krell Overmind considered retreat, not tactical withdrawal, actual fear-driven retreat. On the bridge of Indomitable, Admiral Hyunwoo watched the Krell fleet. He watched the ancient structures. He made a decision. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered, and try to establish communication with those ancient structures. Sir? Woojin said, surprised. We came here to rescue our people and stop the Krell from doing this again. We have the power now to destroy them completely. These ancient weapons would probably do it for us. Hyunwoo looked at his officers. But that's not who we are. We fight when we must. We stop when we can. Send a message to the Krell Overmind. Tell them we're prepared to negotiate terms of surrender. The bridge crew stared at him. They had lost friends. They had bled across half the galaxy. And now, with ultimate power at their fingertips, the Admiral wanted to talk? Sir, Woojin said carefully. They've killed millions of our people. I know. And we've made them pay for it. But we're not here for revenge. We're here to make sure this never happens again. There's a difference. Hyunwoo's voice was firm. Send the message. The message went out. To the Krell. To the ancient structures. To the Galactic Council observers who were watching everything. And the cosmos, which had been trembling with the awakening of ancient powers, seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen when humanity held ultimate power and had to choose what to do with it. The silence lasted for 3 hours. The human fleet maintained position. The Krell armada didn't move. The ancient architect structures floated between them. Weapons powered, but not firing. The entire galaxy seemed to be holding its breath. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on his bridge, waiting. His officers kept glancing at him, wondering if he had made the right choice. They had lost 2,000 personnel getting to this point. Good people, friends, and now they were offering peace to the enemy that had killed them. "Sir," Commander Woojin said quietly, "the crew is questioning the decision. Some of them want blood." "I know," Hyunwoo said. "I want blood too. But wanting something and doing something are different things. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to stop one." Dr. Mireille's voice interrupted. "Admiral, I'm detecting changes in the Krell biocommunications. The Overmind is. It's arguing with itself. I've never seen anything like this. Can you translate?" "Not exactly. But the patterns suggest conflict, internal debate. The human memories we introduced are causing chaos in the hive mind. It's experiencing something like doubt, like fear, like individual thought patterns competing instead of one unified will." Colonel Sungho added, "The ancient structures are also communicating with each other. I'm detecting data transfers between them. If I'm reading this correctly, they're analyzing us, judging us." "Judging us for what?" Woojin asked. "To see if we deserve their power," Hyunwoo said. "The architects left these weapons for a specific type of species. Warriors with honor, fighters who know when to stop fighting. We're being tested." The communication console beeped. "A message from the Krell Overmind. Put it on screen," Hyunwoo ordered. The image that appeared was disturbing. It showed a Krell queen, massive and ancient, surrounded by thousands of smaller Krell, all connected to her through organic cables. But there was something wrong with the image. The queen's movements were erratic. The smaller Krell seemed confused. When the Overmind spoke, its voice was translated by their computers. But even through the translation, you could hear something that shouldn't be there. Uncertainty. "Humans, we do not understand you. We have consumed your memories. We know your history. We know your stories. This should have made you easier to defeat. Instead, it has made us confused." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "The Krell have terrorized this galaxy for 10,000 years. You've consumed 400 civilizations. That ends today. Surrender your military forces, release any remaining prisoners, accept monitoring and restrictions. Or, we will use the power we've awakened to ensure you never harm anyone again." The Overmind's queen twitched. "We do not surrender. We have never surrendered. We are the Krell. We are inevitable. We are scared," Hyunwoo interrupted. "You're scared. We can see it. Your formations are defensive. Your ships are pulling back. You've never faced a species that refused to be prey, and now you don't know what to do." There was a long pause. When the Overmind spoke again, its voice was different, quieter, almost individual instead of collective. "The memories we absorbed, they show humans who fought knowing they would lose, who sacrificed themselves for others, who chose death over dishonor. We do not understand this. It is not efficient. It is not logical. Yet it worked. You are here. You have power beyond our comprehension at your command. And you offer terms instead of extinction. Because that's what separates us from you," Hyunwoo said. "You fight to consume. We fight to protect. You take until there's nothing left. We take back what's ours, and then we stop. That's the difference." Ambassador Nari was watching this exchange from the Galactic Council chambers. Around her, delegates from 50 species sat in stunned silence. The Velthara elder was singing softly, a sound of wonder and recognition. "They're doing it," the crystal being sang. "They're proving themselves worthy." Back on the Indomitable, the Krell Overmind seemed to be processing this. The Queen's movements became slower, more deliberate. "We accept your terms," the Overmind finally said. "We will surrender our military forces. We will release the prisoners, who still live. We will accept your restrictions. But answer one question. Admiral Hyunwoo. Why? You have the power to destroy us completely. Why do you choose mercy?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then, he spoke, and his words would be recorded and studied for generations. "Because mercy is harder than vengeance. Because building is harder than destroying. Because we lost 2,000 people getting here. And if I let their sacrifice turn me into a monster, then those deaths meant nothing. We came here to stop you from killing our people. Mission accomplished. Anything more would just be murder." The ancient architect structures reacted. All of them, simultaneously. They began to glow with soft light. The weapons that had been powered and ready began to power down. And then, as one, they sent a message, not in words, but in pure data that every ship's computer could understand. Worthy. The structures remained active, but they were no longer threatening. They had made their judgment. Humanity had passed the test. The surrender took 2 days to complete. The Krell released 20,000 prisoners they had been holding. Captain Ji-hoon and Commander Salmon led the rescue operations, bringing them home to the fleet's hospital ships. Some had been prisoners for months. Some for years. All of them were alive, and all of them were going home. Sergeant Do-hyun found himself assigned to security detail for the surrender ceremony. He watched as Krell ships powered down their weapons and allowed human inspectors aboard. It felt surreal after all the fighting. A young private named Yoonji approached him. "Sergeant, the guys are asking. After everything the Krell did, why aren't we finishing them off?" Do-hyun thought about the colonists he had rescued on New Jeju. The old farmer who had fought with garden tools. The teacher who had protected her students. The families who had resisted even when there was no hope. Because those people we saved, they didn't fight so we could become monsters. They fought so they could go home, so they could rebuild, so they could live. Do-hyun looked at the young private. "The Krell took enough from us. Don't let them take our humanity too." Lieutenant Taeyong finally got to see his sister. She was among the rescued prisoners. Thin and scarred, but alive. When they met on the hospital ship, they held each other and cried. "I knew you'd come," she said. "I told everyone. My brother is out there. He's coming for us." "Took me long enough," Taeyong said, smiling through his tears. "You came. That's what matters." 3 weeks later, the human fleet began its journey home. They left behind a Krell species that had been humbled, restricted, and monitored. The ancient architect structures remained active, silently keeping watch. The Galactic Council had agreed to help enforce the terms of surrender. Ambassador Nari gave a speech to the Council before departing. Every species in the galaxy was listening. "For 40,000 years, you've survived by avoiding conflict," she said. "By calculating acceptable losses. By deciding that some people, some worlds, could be sacrificed for the greater good. You call this wisdom. And perhaps it is. You've survived." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But survival isn't the same as living. You've permitted species like the Krell to devour the helpless for millennia. You've chosen peace over justice. Safety over duty. We don't judge you for that. Every species must find its own path. But humanity's path is different. We fight when we must. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We refuse to abandon our people. And yes, sometimes this means we rush into war. Sometimes it means we face impossible odds. Sometimes it costs us dearly." She gestured to the view screen, showing the returning human fleet. Ships scarred by battle. Crews mourning their losses. But also ships filled with rescued prisoners. Families reunited. Lives saved. "The cosmos quakes not because it fears us," Nari said. "It quakes because it remembers. For 40,000 years, the galaxy has forgotten what the architects knew. That peace without the will to defend it is just a pause before atrocity. That some things are worth fighting for, that mercy and strength are not opposites, but partners. She looked directly at the Velthora elder. The ancient weapons awakened because they recognized something in us. Not violence, not aggression, but purpose. The same purpose that drove the architects: to protect, to defend, to fight when necessary, and to stop when possible. You've survived for 40,000 years, Nari concluded, and we're grateful for your wisdom. But perhaps it's time the galaxy remembered that survival isn't enough. That some things matter more than caution. That sometimes, the right thing to do is rush into war, knowing you might not come back, because the alternative is to abandon those who need you. The council chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the Velthora elder began to sing. It was a song of welcome, of recognition, of respect. Other species joined in, each with their own sounds. For the first time in 40,000 years, the Galactic Council was welcoming a warrior species not with fear, but with honor. Back on New Jeju, reconstruction had begun. The colonists who had been rescued returned to their homes. They found their farms destroyed, their cities damaged, their lives disrupted. But they were alive, and they were together. A young girl named Yuna stood in what had been her backyard. Her family's house was mostly intact. Her parents had survived. Her older brother had been rescued from a Krell hive ship. They were the lucky ones. She planted a small tree in the garden. It was a tradition from Earth, from Korea, where many of her ancestors had come from. You plant a tree when you want to honor something. When you want to remember. Her father helped her place a stone marker next to the tree. On it was carved a list of names. Neighbors who hadn't made it. Friends who had died fighting. Soldiers from the fleet who had given their lives to save them. Why do we plant a tree for sad things? Yuna asked. Her father knelt beside her. Because sadness isn't the end. The tree will grow. It will give shade and fruit. Life continues. We remember the dead by living well. Around them, other families were doing similar things. Planting trees, placing stones, building memorials. Not monuments to war, but to the people who had mattered. To the lives that had been saved and the lives that had been lost. Admiral Hyunwoo visited New Jeju before returning to Earth. He walked through the memorial gardens that were springing up across the colony. He saw the names of his crew members carved in stone. He met the people they had died to save. An old farmer approached him. The same one Sergeant Do-hyun had rescued. He shook Hyunwoo's hand with a grip still strong from decades of work. Thank you, the farmer said simply, for not forgetting us. Humans don't abandon humans, Hyunwoo replied. That's not negotiable. Even when the cost is high? Hyunwoo looked at the memorial stones. At the names of people he had known. Friends, colleagues, good people who would never go home. Even then. Especially then. Because if we start deciding that some people are worth saving and others aren't, we lose what makes us human. The farmer nodded. The Krell learned that the hard way. They thought we were prey. They were wrong. They thought we were prey, Hyunwoo agreed. But we're something else. We're the species that rushes into war not because we love fighting, but because we love what we're fighting for. Our people, our homes, our right to exist, without fear. He looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the evening. Somewhere out there, the ancient architect structures were still watching. The Krell were learning to live within restrictions. The Galactic Council was beginning to understand what humanity represented. The cosmos quakes, Hyunwoo said quietly, because it remembers what it means to have warriors who fight for others. We're not the first. We won't be the last. But we're here now, and as long as we're here, no one will be abandoned. No one will be forgotten. That's our promise to the galaxy. The farmer smiled. Then the galaxy better get used to shaking. Hyunwoo laughed, a sound that surprised him after weeks of war. Yes. Yes. It better. And across the cosmos, in monitoring stations and council chambers and ancient structures left behind by a species long gone, the universe took note. Humanity had arrived. They had rushed into war. They had won. And more importantly, they had stopped. That combination, the willingness to fight and the wisdom to show mercy, was what made the cosmos quake. Not in fear, but in recognition. The architect's children, born 40,000 years too late, had finally come home.